Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Angie Kirchhoff, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, we're going to be talking about the Fantasy Football Week 8 running back start or sits, the highly anticipated episode of the week where many of you have majority of your questions revolving around the running back position. Guys who are consistently injured, or, Fournette, Dalvin Cook, Matt Breida, and then guys that are just inconsistent that we'll go over. I'll talk about them. I'll talk about my 4 starts of the week, and then as we get into the sits of the week, I'll kind of give you a little bit of insight on what goes through my mind, what kind of stats I specifically look at when it comes to specifically going after running backs that I think you should sit on a weekly basis. So I'll kind of give you my design on behind the scenes, kind of what I look for, and then we'll go over my rankings 1 through 36 at the running back position. Pretty straightforward. So again, we're going to talk about my starts of the week, go through the sits and what I think are the main statistics to look after when it comes to finding sits of the week, and then we're going to go over the rankings. So without further ado, before we begin, I just want to thank all of you who have subscribed to my YouTube channel. We're almost at 4K. We're getting there. We're on our way eventually. People share these episodes with their friends, their buddies, their families, and the word gets out. And, for some of you who are new to the channel, I'd just like to, already start by saying there's a subscribe button down there. If you would like content on the daily, about 6 videos a week on average, just click that button. It'll be in your inbox. And for those of you who are consistently always here, smash that like button. Get the like total to over 100 like it usually is. I appreciate it, guys. And without further ado, let's begin, shall we? Okay. Hey, everybody. How's it going? Okay. So real quick heads up, there will not be a quarterback rankings video following this today because I will probably go and just try to answer questions. I know many of you have waiver questions, and waivers is tonight, so I think I'm going to switch it up, probably do quarterbacks tomorrow with wide receivers. But let's talk about starts of the week at the running back position. We are starting with Phillip Lindsay of the Denver Broncos, and we're going and then we'll talk about the other guy on the other side of the screen, okay? Don't click the X up top. Don't click the back button. I understand. Lamar Miller isn't a, highly touted running back that everyone wants to start, but with my argument this coming week, you'll get a better idea of why I'm exactly telling you to start Lamar Miller if you do, in fact, own him. Perhaps he's on the waivers. You never know. But as of right now, let's talk about Phillip Lindsay of the Denver Broncos. Now, what gives Phillip Lindsay a lot of value this week? Well, there's 2 things specifically. It's matchup and it's injury to Royce Freeman. Okay, now why is that exactly valuable? Well, obviously we know that the running back position of the Denver Broncos, it hasn't been consistently solid. There have been games where, Phillip Lindsay and Royce Freeman straight up split carries. Yes, Phillip Lindsay has been more productive throughout the entire season than Royce Freeman, but Royce Freeman will still get his opportunities. He is a rookie as well. Both of these guys are competing for a job that I guess, as of right now, Phillip Lindsay is 1 due to the high ankle sprain of Royce Freeman. So the way I see it going into this week 8 of the regular season of the fantasy football season, Phillip Lindsay by himself in this backfield. I understand there's Devontae Booker, but Devontae Booker is usually a guy that'll come in, probably pass block a little bit, get a couple opportunities in the passing game, but nothing to worry about. That he's not a guy that's going to be taking away fantasy value from Phillip Lindsay. So as of right now, why do I see Phillip Lindsay as a start? Well, as I said, injury, but on top of that, the matchup. Who do they play this week? The Denver Broncos play against the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City, which is, in itself, it's a difficult thing to do. But the Kansas City Chiefs, as of this season, or as of thus far, they've given up the second most fantasy points to the running back position. Now, that is a statistic that's absolutely crazy. If I'm not mistaken, I think they give up almost 30 points per game to the running back position on average on a weekly basis. Imagine giving up 30 fantasy points to the running backs of those teams. And just looking at the backfield of the Denver Broncos as of right now, it's really just Phillip Lindsay who's going to pick up majority of the value this coming week. I like him a lot. That's why I've already stated he's the start of the week. He was my start of the week last week. He popped off against the Cardinals. Why? Because of the matchup, right? Obviously, Royce Freeman, find his way to steal fantasy value with that goal line carry. But as of right now, Phillip Lindsay this week, he's a guy you should absolutely start. I mean, just looking at his statistics thus far in half-point PPR scoring leagues, right? There's been 2 weeks that he's been held to 4 carries, right? In those 2 weeks, obviously, he's not going to be able to produce. But when he has 15 attempts, 14 attempts, 12 attempts, 12 attempts, 14 attempts, let me read the score lines for you in half-point PPR. 17.2, 11.6, 14.9, 9.6, and 16.10. This guy's an absolute monster. He's been producing at a ridiculous rate. A guy that, if you had ended up picking him up around week 2 or 3, you're absolutely satisfied. And going forward, he's going to be consistent. That's Phillip Lindsay for you. So let's move on to the guy that I understand, okay? It's very difficult to maybe just understand why I've gone this deep. Have I lost my mind? Did the failures at the hidden gem section of the week from last week completely crush my soul? And I've turned to Lamar Miller. Here's the thing about Lamar Miller. I don't think, look, he's not the worst running back in the NFL. We know that, right? But he's not great either, right? He is in that mid-tier of, on a weekly basis, he's going to be ranked between 30 and 25, right? He's somewhere within that range on a weekly basis. Now, last week against the Jacksonville Jaguars, a defense and a team that has been struggling over the last couple weeks, morally defeated, emotionally defeated. There are no leaders on that team. Nobody is turning, they had to turn to Cody Kessler at quarterback. They couldn't even move the ball. So as of right now, Lamar Miller's performance last week, it's promising, but to an extent, right? 22 carries, 100 rushing yards, had his first rushing touchdown of the season. You see, this is the thing about Lamar Miller. You can't trust him because on the goal line, and especially in the red zone, the Texans have been awful this season. They've just been unimaginably bad in the red zone. It's all of Coach O'Brien's play calling, which is just, it's been terrible. And obviously the offense has sputtered. Deshaun Watson hasn't looked as good because of it. But as of right now, who does Lamar Miller play this coming week? That's the question, right? He plays against the Miami Dolphins on Thursday Night Football. Now, why exactly do I think you should start him? Well, number one, opportunity, right? He's the starter of this team. Number two, it's the matchup, guys. The matchup looks clean. He plays against the Miami Dolphins, who have given up the third most fantasy points to the running back position this season. There's a thing in common here, right? I want to play running backs that have great opportunity. I understand Alfred Blue's in that backfield, but they didn't hand it off to Alfred Blue. He had that really good week against the Cowboys, but they have not given him the keys to the kingdom and let him take over. It's fine. It's understandable. Lamar Miller's the guy getting paid all the money, so you might as well use him while you can and just get every ounce out of him, right? As of right now, Lamar Miller into a great matchup, has had a lot, just this past week, touches-wise, he looked great. What is that? A total of 24 touches, had 3 targets in the passing game, only caught 1. But 23 touches, 100 yards, and a touchdown. I think going forward into this week, I think the Miami Dolphins are going to struggle a little bit, especially it being at Houston. And on top of it, the Miami Dolphins wide receiver core is barren. There is nobody healthy on that thing. Even Danny Amendola, who I mentioned yesterday, is really banged up. So that team, they might struggle. So Lamar Miller's going to have his opportunities either to run through this defense, who's just been terrible against the running back, or to garbage time, pick up some points. Either way, I like Lamar Miller as well this week. Listen, if you don't have any better options because you are dealing with bye weeks, right? Let's not forget the Cowboys, the Chargers, the Titans, and the Falcons, right? That's 8 running backs that potentially could start in specific leagues, right? Not 8 running backs. Let's talk about 6, okay? Because Derrick Henry's not a running back, and the Cowboys don't have another running back, right? So Zeke gone, Eckler gone, Melvin Gordon gone, Dion Lewis gone. I just woke up this past week, Dion Lewis. And then we have Tevin Coleman, maybe Ito Smith, depending on it, right? There's a good opportunity. Lamar Miller has a pretty good week. I like him this week. He's one of my starts of the week. Let's go. Let's move it, baby. Whew. Okay. Now, we're getting there, right? We're getting to the point where, listen, Marlon Mack has been great. Okay, we know that for a fact. Okay, just off of his last 2 performances, he's just been so damn good. The thing that scares me the most, though, okay, is the fact that Nyheim Hines did not have a single fantasy point when it comes to receiving the ball out of the backfield this past week against the Buffalo Bills. Now, what exactly does that mean? I understand a lot of it is game script. You don't want to throw the ball. But Nyheim Hines, he wasn't involved in the passing game. There really wasn't a passing game against the Bills because they just ran the ball down their throat. But just watch out for that. Maybe Marlon Mack, he is not a bruising back. He is a guy that has speed. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. They're going to use him with all of his potential strengths. So Nyheim Hines' value does decrease a little bit here or there. But as of the last 2 weeks, 19 rushes for 126 yards and a touchdown. And then, 12 rushes for 89 yards and a touchdown. This guy is absolutely dynamic. He even picked up a touchdown in the passing game this past week with 2 receptions, 33 receiving yards. I talked about him. If he's on your waivers, he must be picked up. And on top of it, why should you start him? He's got a great matchup, plays against the Oakland Raiders this coming week. Now, what have the Raiders given up on a weekly basis? I'm about to find that out, people. Here we are. Here we go. Marlon Mack plays against the Raiders. The Raiders have given up the 9th most fantasy points to the running back position. And let's be honest, right? That Raiders locker room is probably in shambles. Like, all things considered, what they have done the offseason and the regular season when it comes to trading, losing players to injury, and just being an inept team in general, right? They can't stop anybody defensively, and they can't score the ball. I think that locker room is going to be in trouble. And to be honest, they might be blown out left, right, and center. And that's what I think is going to happen this week with Andrew Luck being so good as of late. Marlon Mack finding a running game. Let's not forget, Frank Gore, 36-year-old Frank Gore, or 99-year-old Frank Gore, has been the starting running back of the Colts for 2 years prior. I think maybe even more. I think it might be the last 3 to 4 years. And he's been good. Dude, Marlon Mack was an RB2 last season for majority of the season. The guy had about 900 rushing yards last season. Honestly, the Colts are going to run the ball. Marlon Mack is the guy. And I think this week he's got the opportunity. He's got a great matchup. And he's going all in on it. So Marlon Mack, start him up. Pick him up. Start him up right away. All right, and the last guy I want to talk about, Raheem Mostert, doesn't matter. Mostert, okay? I'm not going to mess that up again. Raheem Mostert, okay? Now, why specifically him? You may be thinking, what happened to Matt Breida? Like, is Matt Breida... Well, honestly, Matt Breida is kind of dead to me. Like, honestly, and on a personal level, Matt Breida, you're dead to me. Period. But in a fantasy kind of conversation or perspective, even if Matt Breida plays, chances are he gets hurt and he's on the sideline. Now, why do I think that Mostert's going to have a good week? All right, guys. He's going to have opportunity. Why? Because Matt Breida is probably not going to play. All right, even if he does, again, he's going to get injured. And on top of it, he's got a fantastic matchup. Who do they play, Andrew? They play against the Cardinals. Now, how many points have the Cardinals given up? They've given up the number one. They've given up the most fantasy points to the running back position this season. I think it's about 33 fantasy points per game and half-point PPR to the running back position. And to be honest, Mostert has been pretty damn good out of the last 2 games. Oh my goodness, just his yards per carry average out of the backfield, 7.3 against Green Bay 2 weeks ago and 8.4 this past week. This guy's been pretty damn good. Alfred Morris, out the window, gone, dead. They might as well cut him. And Breida's just an injured mess. So this coming week against the worst defense against the running back position, you got to start him, right? He's going to be on the waivers. I mentioned him yesterday. For those of you who are struggling, perhaps you don't have a high enough waiver bid. Fab is different, right? Fab, you can just go ahead and chalk up some cash for that. But as of right now, for those of you who don't have a high enough waiver position and you know, okay, Marlon Mack's going to be gone, Jalen Richard is going to be gone, Doug Martin is going to be gone, perhaps potentially Nick Chubb, stuff like that is going to be gone. Mostert is a good option this week, and perhaps going forward. I understand Matt Breida is going to be healthy eventually, but if this guy can carve himself out a positive week here to where Shanahan is comfortable with him he might be the running back going forward. Breida can't stay healthy. They've got to find a guy to help them win games. That's going to be Mostert going forward. Again, he's been fantastic fantasy-wise. In his small role that he's had in the last 2 weeks, he's been pretty good. And the thing that I want to highlight specifically, this past week against the Rams, he was involved in the passing game, 4 targets, 4 receptions. So, right away, we know he can run the ball. He's explosive, and he can be used in the passing game. That's all you want. Opportunity-wise, he's a 3-down back at that point, especially if Breida's out. Raheem Mostert, 100%. All right, guys, let's move on. Let's talk about the sits of the week. Now, we're going to approach this a little bit differently. I'm condensed here. My shoulders are feeling a little clogged, but it's okay. We're going to be talking about how I specifically approach some of these strategies when it comes to the running back position, right? Fantasy points given to the running back position. Fantasy points allowed, practically, from defenses. Now, why is this special? I just mentioned it in 4 specific cases. The 4 guys that I'm starting this week, that I am for sure starting, if I own them in leagues, right? Unless I own Todd Gurley. But as of right now, if I own those guys, I'm starting them. Why? Because the teams that they play have been atrocious against the running back position. They give up yards in bunches. Now, this may be difficult to read, but honestly, I think it's clear enough to where you can see it, okay? Because I can see it at this point. All right, so let's just look at this. As I mentioned, right, the Arizona Cardinals have given up, it's 31.73 points to the running back position. They nearly give up 137 rushing yards per game, 1.4 touchdowns per game to the running back position, rushing touchdowns. That is insane. They give up a total of 1.7 touchdowns per game receiving and rushing to the running back position. Guys, Raheem is going to be good this week. I'm telling you. And then on top of that, right, the next team, Kansas City Chiefs, like I mentioned, with Phillip Lindsay. 29.2 fantasy points per game to the running back position, giving up 101 rushing yards on an average 19 carries per week. And on top of that, look how much receiving yards per game they're giving. They're giving up an average of, what is that? That's 7 receptions and 73 yards a week. I'm telling you, this is the way you have to approach it, okay? But really specifically, now, you can go ahead and dissect this, use it in whichever way you'd like to. This is for half-point PPR, by the way, for those of you who do not already know. Everything I do is in half-point PPR. Why? Because I kind of want to find the middle ground between your standard players and your full-point PPR players. Half-point's the way to go. Anyway, so let's talk about guys that you should potentially sit this week. Now, where do we go? We go to the bottom of the list, right down there, okay? Right down there. You see that? The red? Yeah, the red is never a good thing, okay? So these teams don't really give up much points to the running back position. As we can tell, the Baltimore Ravens are the best front 7 when it comes to stopping the run and not giving up any sort of statistical advantage to running backs. On average, they give up 12.79 points per game to the running back position. We saw it this past week. Mark Ingram was held to some useless amount of points. Alvin Kamara basically made up his week with that touchdown. And it's just the Baltimore Ravens, they are a tough defense to play against. So if you're considering, what does this exactly mean? Well, just figure out who the Ravens play with this week. They play against the Carolina Panthers. Now, I'm not completely saying you have to sit Christian McCaffrey. I'm just saying be careful. Understand that Christian McCaffrey can't be ranked as high because of this. The Steelers, the Saints. Look at the Saints really quickly, as we all should. They average only giving up 47.7 rushing yards per game. That is the least amongst all teams in the league. They give up the fewest amount of rushing yards per game. Now, why is that? I personally believe it's because the passing game is so potent for teams. Just think about what Joe Flacco was able to do this past week with John Brown. If the passing game is so potent, why would they have to run the ball against you, especially if it doesn't work right out the gate? But then again, look at that. 17 carries per game, 47.7 yards. Teams are still running the ball on average, but they're not getting any yards. Who's playing against the Saints this week? It's Latavius Murray. Just be careful, guys. This is the only point I wanted to make. Because I mention this so often, and I have many of you asking, can you give us the link to where you're getting these statistics. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen. Half-point PPR points allowed or given to the running back position on a weekly basis. Well, this is the average amongst the first 7 weeks of the regular season. So there it is. Do with it as you will. And I mean, man, look at these the juiciness up top. Goodness gracious. If they're playing against like the Detroit Lions this week, Chris Carson, fire him up, guys. He's going to have himself a pretty decent week to say the least. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on. Let's talk about the rankings for week 8 of the regular season, the fantasy football season. All right, pretty plain and simple. We're getting after it. Todd Gurley, number 1. Oh, goodness. How does Todd Gurley manage to do this? He's single-handedly, if you had the first overall pick in your league, congratulations. You're probably, at least 5-2? If you're not 5-2, right, you somehow drastically messed something up, okay? Now, there is a possibility that it wasn't your fault. I understand that. There's a lot of variables to fantasy football. There are things that you cannot control, like literally everything. But there are things that you can control that perhaps you haven't done to the best of your ability. As of right now, like if you were a Todd Gurley owner and you owned Devontae Freeman and you owned Jimmy Garoppolo and you just got completely screwed with injuries, you own Dalvin Cook, I'm sorry, that's unfortunate, but majority of Todd Gurley owners are probably still in it. You at least have 4 wins, okay? Even with all that kind of chaos, you at least still have 4 wins in your league. But for those of you who are Todd Gurley owners, you probably have 6 wins. 6 plus, at least. He's just been absolutely crazy. I mean, are you kidding me? What has he had? 3 touchdowns this past week, 2 the week prior, and 3 touchdowns the week prior to that. I mean, come on. He's putting up more points in touchdowns than running backs do just with yards and touchdowns combined. Like, he's worth at least, like, let's say, for example, you play in a 1 quarterback league. I like to, my preference is to have multiple quarterbacks play in a super flex, right? But if you play in a regular standard where you have a quarterback like Andrew Luck, and on top of it, you have Todd Gurley, congratulations. You practically have 2 quarterbacks that are just completely slinging it. Every single week. He's the number 1 going forward, and until he has a bye week, he's number 1. Maybe even on bye week, I leave him up there for I don't know, for all purposes. Doesn't matter. Number 2, we're talking about Kareem Hunt, a guy that's just been great. He's a product of the offense. I mentioned it yesterday when I was talking about the specific performances of Week 7 of the regular season. Here in Week 8, plays against the Denver Broncos. As I mentioned, or you saw before, if you haven't, go back to this timestamp so you'll be able to click on it. I talked about points allowed or given up to the running back position. The Denver Broncos are in that top 10, or the top 10, giving up a lot of points to the running back position. Specifically, let's go find that really quickly. They're giving up, in fact, the Denver Broncos are giving up 25.46 points to the running back position, giving up 1 touchdown and 136 yards per game on the ground alone. Kareem Hunt's going to have himself a fantastic game. He's at home. This offense is crazy good. And on top of it, they've already played against the Denver Broncos earlier this season, right? This is the second time they're playing against them. So they're going to have film, and they're going to be able to produce. Kareem Hunt's my number 2 this week. Number 3, Saquon Barkley. Even though he didn't have a great game last night, right? On the ground, wasn't really given much opportunity. That offensive line is a garbage can. But in the passing game, 9 receptions. That is a PPR dream, and he's making it come true. Saquon Barkley, no matter what, he's going to be relevant. He's my number 3. Number 4, welcome back. It's James Conner. Guys, I'm worried about Le'Veon Bell. I'm really worried about him. Why? Because currently, I'm an owner of Le'Veon Bell. One of my leagues, I've somehow managed to find myself at 5-2, but I'm a Le'Veon Bell owner. Why? Because I was able to pick up James Conner early. But if Le'Veon Bell comes back after the so-called the trade deadline, which is usually what he wants to do. He wants to come after the trade deadline so that they can't ship him off to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers or something like that, right? But as of right now, I'm just worried that he may not even come back. It's not terrible, but for those of you who do not own James Conner, this is a very, very tough thing, and it's going to kill your entire season. It's tough. But as of right now, James Conner, he's been on fire. He plays against the Cleveland Browns this week. The first time they played against the Cleveland Browns, what happened? He had 130-plus rushing yards. Guy was absolutely electric. As of the last couple of weeks, he has found himself. Why? Because they are giving him more opportunities. He was a little slow in the weeks 3, 4, 5-ish. That's only because the Steelers, started to go away from him. They stopped giving him opportunities. They stopped giving him handoffs. They've begun to realize, our offense is 100% dictated on our running game. We have that Pro Bowl offensive line with 5 studs. We need to run the ball through James Conner in order to get this offense going. They finally found that. He's been fantastic as of the last 2 games he's played. And going forward, he's going to be great. Number 4, James Conner for sure. Joe Mixon, number 5, playing against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. I mean, this defense is terrible. We all know that. Obviously the Browns, they did their best, but the Browns are really bad. Anybody in their right mind, if you put the Patriots against this defense right now, they could potentially drop 50. Like, I'm not even kidding. It's that ridiculous. You put up any team with a good passing offense and a good offensive line, they can put up a boatload of points against this Tampa Bay defense. But as of right now, I'm not 100% sure the Bengals are the best option right now, considering off that performance. But I still have confidence in the Bengals to at least be able to make Joe Mixon somewhat relevant to the point where he's at least the top 5 running back this week. Therefore, he's at my number 5. He's a guy that he's going to be using the passing game as well. But hopefully this week they find themselves. Nick Chubb had himself 81 yards and a touchdown against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. So I think Joe Mixon, who's a running back that is just as good, if not better, than Nick Chubb, is going to be able to find himself some success. Number 6, we have Alvin Kamara. Man, here's the thing about Alvin Kamara. They play against the Vikings this week. And honestly, I don't know, man. Alvin Kamara is scaring me a little bit, guys. He's scaring me. I knew that it was going to be difficult for him to find fantasy value once, Mark Ingram came back. But I didn't think it was going to be this difficult. Alvin Kamara only had 2 catches this past week. Gosh, that's a struggle. To say the least, that's a struggle. At least they are giving him more carries than they are giving Mark Ingram, which is what you want, right? You spent a first-round pick for this guy. He deserves to get majority of the carries. So at least we have that. Right, at least they know for a fact, okay, Alvin Kamara is the better running back of the 2. We're not going to mess around with it. So that's a good thing. That's the upside of it. Hopefully going forward, I think he's going to have a decent week. He's just got to get more involved in the passing game. They've got to give him a little bit more opportunity here and there. The amount of carries, he had 17 carries. That's a beautiful number, right? I don't think all of last season, I don't think he had a single game with 17 rushing attempts. I'm not 100% sure on that. But that is a number that I don't remember ever seeing when I went through his stat sheet in this preseason. So as of right now, Alvin Kamara, man, he's going to have his opportunity. Just got to hope he doesn't get poached by good old Mark Ingram. So number 7, we have James White. Now, why exactly? I'm not sure to what extent Sony Michel is injured, but I don't think Sony Michel is playing this week. Chances are on Monday Night Football against the Buffalo Bills, they're not going to risk the use of Sony Michel. Why would they have to, right? This is a team that wants to make a playoff run. They want to end up in the Super Bowl again. So why would they push Sony Michel to come back so soon? They will not. Therefore, James White, the starting running back, and literally the only valuable running back out of this backfield. I know I mentioned Kenyon Barner yesterday, but again, that's a shot in the dark. We may not get anything out of Kenyon Barner, but then again, they're playing against the Bills. It's going to be a blowout, so someone's going to have to get some garbage time carries. So watch out for that. But as of right now, James White, number 7, he's been fantastic in fantasy football this season. For those of you owners, he might be the most valuable player on your team right now on a consistent basis. This dude puts up insane amounts of points. So going forward, he's a top 10 for sure, and he's my number 7 this week. At number 8, we have David Johnson. All right, David Johnson, here it is. You play against the 49ers, and you have a pretty good opportunity here, but will you be able to act upon that opportunity? We'll just have to wait and see. We'll see what kind of offense Byron Leftwich, the offensive coordinator now, the interim offensive coordinator as of right now, comes in and musters up. Hopefully, it's going to be something that is familiar, right? Hopefully, it's something that gives David Johnson 10 targets and 8 receptions. That's what we want. We need David Johnson in the passing game. He's never been a back to just only he's not a bruiser. Yes, he can bruise you, but he's a guy with the ability to catch the ball just like a wide receiver out of the backfield. And he's got to be able to, at least this Cardinals team, they got to stop using Chase Edmonds, number one. What the hell is that shit? I'm sick and tired of watching Cardinals games. And just when you think, okay, all right, here we go. It's 3rd and 1. We need David Johnson in. Here comes the rookie Chase Edmonds. Why would you? I don't understand that. But then again, I'm not an NFL coach. So be it, right? But as of right now, David Johnson this week, got a good matchup. I like him. He's my number 8. Number 9, we have Kerryon Johnson. Guys, I'm fully in on him. Just off of watching him play last week, they played against the Miami Dolphins, okay? Understandably, the Miami Dolphins defense against the running back, as I mentioned or showed before, they're not great, okay? But going forward, I think he's proved himself enough. Yes, LeGarrette Blount's going to steal some touchdowns here and there, but he's proved himself enough that he can be used in the passing game. He can be used on every single down. He can be used 1st, 2nd, 3rd on the goal line. Does not matter. I understand he had that goal line carry, got stuffed, but that's not the point. The point is Kerryon Johnson going forward. He plays against the Seattle Seahawks this week. A defense that is pretty average, but they can give up points. They can give up yards on the ground. I think Kerryon Johnson has that ability to be able to exploit defenses like this. He's so talented, and going forward, oh man, I cannot wait until I see his fantasy value next season. It's going to be off the charts, especially after what he does in the next couple weeks. He's my number 9 this week. Number 10, Tarik Cohen. Can I say enough about Tarik Cohen? It's absolutely ridiculous. I just need to find it real quick. Tarik Cohen, as of the last 3 weeks in half-point PPR scoring leagues. Are you ready for this? For those of you who somehow magically watched my gauntlet video 3 weeks ago and heard me talk about Tarik Cohen and the potential that he has, for those of you that heard that and picked him up and have yet to drop him, I don't know how I did it. It wasn't me. It was the gauntlet fully. Period. Okay? So you can thank the gauntlet, and you're welcome. So as of right now, in the last 3 games that he's played, 26.9, 19.6, and 18.3 fantasy points per game. Holy moly. This guy's not even running the ball out of the backfield. This is all receptions. You've got to be kidding me. It's actually ridiculous. He is the number 1 receiver on this team. All things considered, as of late, dude, this guy has been receiving the ball like a monster. This past week against New England, right? He was my start of the week. Why? Because I knew for a fact that New England defense, they can't cover running backs out of the backfield. They are just not capable of doing that. A couple weeks back, obviously Kareem Hunt the week prior. The week prior to that, Nyheim Hines was able to tear them apart. And he had 12 targets. 12 targets as a running back out of the backfield, right? And he doesn't even have, he splits carries with Jordan Howard. Imagine that, right? 12 targets, 8 receptions, 69 yards. The week prior, 9 targets, 7 receptions, 90 receiving yards. 8 targets, 7 receptions, 121 receiving yards. Dude, Tarik Cohen, holy moly. Going forward, he's only going to create himself more and more of a role within this offense. He's a number 1 receiver. He's a guy that can even put him down the slot. They don't need to use him out of the backfield. That's how good he is. Goodness gracious, Tarik Cohen. He's my number 10. I talk about him like he should be my number 1, but honestly, he could be. In a good week, this man could be the number 1 running back. He could be. But obviously, Todd Gurley's 3 touchdowns on average kind of thing is throwing it apart. It's a 2 touchdown per game average, but I think it's 14 touchdowns in 7 weeks, something like that. Okay, anyway, we're moving on. Phillip Lindsay, number 11, my first start of the week. Again, I mentioned they play against the Kansas City Chiefs defense, who have given up the 2nd most fantasy points to the running back position. And he is the only running back in that backfield. Royce Freeman's hurt. Devontae Booker's a bum. Fire him up. Let's go, Phillip Lindsay. Number 12, Christian McCaffrey, who honestly, by all means, Christian McCaffrey, where have you been, buddy? You went on that bye week and you just never came back. I don't know where they took you or who is just... Can we just pull up McCaffrey stats, please? I don't understand what the heck's going on. Thank you. All right. I don't know what happened to you. You were so consistently amazing. Now you've become an average running back. You become a flex play at this point, right? The last 2 weeks, 7 rushing attempts, 8 rushing attempts. Wait, okay, hold up. This is actually the first I'm looking at this stat specifically, right? I'm just a little curious, especially for those of you who own Christian McCaffrey. Who's running the ball for this team? Wait, Okay, so you're telling me this past week against the Eagles that Cam Newton had just as many carries while they ran the ball a total of, 17 times? That's terrible. That's embarrassing. What about the week prior to that? Where's the Panthers? I know they had a bye week early, but where are you, Panthers? Come on. Are we going to pop up? Thank you. Okay, Panthers. I cannot find them for the life of me. Who did they play in week 6? I legit have no recollection. Oh, the Redskins. Oh, goodness. They got clamped down by the Redskins. 8. Oh, goodness. Cam Newton is getting more carries than Christian McCaffrey. No. Oh, goodness. How is that possible, though? Like, what kind of offensive coordinator? I know it's Norv Turner, right? Norv Turner, if I'm not mistaken, is the offensive coordinator for the Carolina Panthers. What is he thinking? Christian McCaffrey, yes, he's a PPR back, but coming off of 28 carries for 20 fantasy points and then 17 carries for 17 fantasy points, why have we turned him to an 8 to 7 rushes per game kind of guy? At least use C.J. Anderson to give us more fantasy value out of this backfield if you're going to run the ball. But they're not even running the ball at this point. I don't know, man. Doesn't look good, especially playing against the Ravens this week. He's a guy that I'm a little afraid of, but hopefully in the passing game he finds himself. All right, number 13, we have Marlon Mack. As I mentioned, one of my starts of the week, a guy that is full go. Pick him up, start him, without a doubt. Let's go. Number 14, Nick Chubb. This past week, guys, I wasn't confident with Nick Chubb. Why? Specifically because I didn't know what I was going to get out of him, right? We had seen him in spurts here and there throughout the season, but were we going to just get Carlos Hyde 2.0, a guy that was getting about 15 carries and 60 yards? Was that what we were going to get on a consistent basis? Well, he was able to outperform that. As I mentioned, 80 rushing yards, and he had himself a touchdown, but it was against the Buccaneers defense. This week, he's got himself a challenge. He plays against the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. Can he step up to that challenge? I'm hoping he does so. He's my number 14 running back. Let's go, baby. Come on, move the ball. Duke Johnson obviously is not being used as much. It's Nick Chubb time. Let's go. All right, number 15, Chris Carson. I mean, guys, he's got a good matchup. Plays against the Lions defense, who gave up a bunch of points to Kerryon Johnson this past week. And, Chris Carson, he was a little banged up the couple weeks prior to his bye week, but now he's fully healthy. He's ready to go. And the Seahawks, they're going to run the ball with him 20-plus times. So let's go. Number 16, Latavius Murray, with the absence of Dalvin Cook. I don't even think Dalvin Cook plays this week. Even if he does, I'm not really worried about it. Latavius Murray has become a pretty good fantasy start. The last 2 weeks, he's been fantastic. Therefore, he's going to continue to move up this chopping block here. I'm only worried about his potential output this week because play against the Saints. And once, Adam Thielen gets his 18 targets and, Stephon Diggs gets his million targets. This is a rematch, by the way. Let's not forget. In the playoffs last season, we had that the Minnesota Miracle or whatever with Stephon Diggs catching the ball and that poor safety missing a tackle because he dipped his head and wanted to get a Shazier spinal transplant. I don't know. But as of right now, Latavius Murray, I think he's good for a good amount of points. He's going to be a guy that's given enough carries, and he's going to get all the goal line work. Why? Because he's really the only running back there. Dalvin Cook's not present, so Latavius Murray, with all the value that you're getting, and you're being pretty consistent over the last couple of weeks, I think he'll be good. Number 17, Adrian Peterson, playing against the New York Giants this coming week. He's going to have a great week. Chris Thompson has been MIA the last couple of weeks due to his ribs and ankle injury, if I'm not mistaken. I know for sure it's a rib injury. But, Adrian Peterson's probably going to sit on that questionable tag the entire week until he's cleared on about Friday, Saturday-ish. He'll go to healthy and he'll play and he'll be good. So he's number 17. Number 18, Kenyan Drake. I can't believe I've done this. I can't believe you've done this. But as of right now, Kenyan Drake. Why? I don't know. But he's been good as of late, right? Maybe that's my logic. Okay, here's my real logic behind this, okay? Theoretically, with Albert Wilson out, Kenny Stills out, Devontae Parker just being, he's not even on the field. Even if he lines up out wide this week, he's not on the field. He's practically a ghost, okay? They have Danny Amendola with a questionable tag as of right now with a shoulder injury that he was limited in practice today. Obviously, they're going to have him limited until game time decision. So they have Danny Amendola, who's banged up. They have the ghost of Devontae Parker, and they have Jakeem Grant. So where exactly does that leave Kenyan Drake? I think that leaves Kenyan Drake at a spot where he's going to catch a lot of balls out of the backfield. I think there is a pretty good opportunity for him to at least do something in that kind of a capacity. He is the receiving back for this team. Frank Gore is definitely not catching no balls out of the backfield. Hopefully Kenyan Drake has himself a little bit of opportunity, because if he does, he can find himself some points with some explosive plays. That's why he's at 18. Number 19, Jordan Howard. A guy that I'm not completely buying in on him, but I like the matchup. I will buy the matchup this week against the Jets. I mean, if Latavius Murray can put up those kind of numbers, I'm sure Jordan Howard can find himself on the goal line, get a 6-point touchdown, at least find himself 60 rushing yards, maybe one reception, because we know his hands are made of bricks, but there's a potential that he catches at least one ball, right? You flare screen fake to Tarik Cohen, come back to Jordan Howard. Boom. I'm calling it right now. If that play happens, goodness gracious, I should be an offensive coordinator. Okay, number 20, Lamar Miller, my next start of the week. As I mentioned, great matchup. Played and at least had his best game of this season thus far, maybe in recent memory, at least in my opinion, for Lamar Miller. So hopefully he can turn it around. Number 21, we have Jalen Richard, one of these waiver wire pickup guys, I think in a half-point PPR setting this coming week against the Indianapolis Colts. A game where it's going to be a race to see who can score the most amount of points. Obviously, we know who's going to win that race. It's going to be Andrew Luck in that offense. They're going to get after it. They're going to be able to score a lot of points. So where does that leave the Raiders? That leaves the Raiders down 28, and that leaves them with Jalen Richard in the backfield catching tons of balls from Derek Carr, because honestly, who is Derek Carr going to throw the ball to? Jared Cook, maybe. That's a pretty good option. I think Jared Cook's value's gone up. Jordy Nelson a little bit, maybe. Martavis Bryant for 150-yard pass. We'll figure it out. But as of right now, Jalen Richard, number 21. All right, number 22. If Breida plays, he could be decent, but I doubt he does. Therefore, Raheem Mostert, one of my starts of the week this week. He's my number 22. I like him. I love him. He better have himself a damn week, because he has the best matchup, or one of the best matchups that you could possibly ask for as the running back position. So he's my number 22. Number 23, we have Mark Ingram. Guys, I understand he didn't play well, right? But they played against the Ravens. I showed you a little bit earlier that the Ravens don't give up a lot of points to the running back position. They really don't. And to be honest, I'm not surprised, because they're a good defense, if not the best defense in the NFL, right? So as of right now, where does that leave Mark Ingram? That leaves him at the point where you're thinking, okay, do I start him or do I sit him? This week, it just really depends. If you have any of the guys that I mentioned before, or perhaps any of the guys that I'm about to mention in the next couple, picks, I think there could be an argument here or there, because he is for sure not going to get the passing work anytime soon. He might get a little bit of it, but he's not guaranteed anything. If they end up on the 1-yard line, Mark Ingram he has some value, because he might be able to punch it in for 6 points. But other than that, I'm just a little worried about Mark Ingram. He's my number 23 right now, because I believe in his skill, but do I believe in the opportunity that he's going to be given? Not sure about that. Number 24, Carlos Hyde. All right, guys. I think he's had enough time to learn this offense, and this offense really needs a running back. I think Carlos Hyde is going to be I know they're going to split carries. Him and Yeldon are going to split carries, but when they're on the goal line trying to score, who's going to have the better opportunity? It's going to be Carlos Hyde. Yeldon is going to pick up majority of the passing work, but going forward, Carlos Hyde this coming week, I like him. He's my number 24. He's at the fringe of RB3, RB2 range. Therefore, he's at 24. Number 25, Corey Clement. Come on, Clement. He is the best running back in this backfield yet. We've got guys like with Smallwood and Adams taking carries, and a lot of just BS from him. The Eagles don't know what they're doing. It's unfortunate, and it's going to hurt the Eagles in the long run. But hopefully sooner rather than later, Corey Clement is given an opportunity to the point where he has multiple. Did you see how many targets I mentioned about Tarik Cohen? 12 targets, 9 targets, 8 targets in the last 3 weeks. Where is that for Corey Clement? He's just as diverse and athletic and capable in the passing game. Why wouldn't you set him up for success in that specific way? I'm confused. Number 26, Alex Collins. Man, Alex Collins. I don't know about Alex Collins. He's dead weight at this point. You may be thinking, should I be dropping Alex Collins? There's a good argument for that. But I don't know if we're at that point as of yet, but it's getting there. It really is getting there. I'm not really convinced with this Alex Collins bullshit anymore. It's really just getting on my nerves at this point because we just can't consistently depend on him. And that's what you want. You've drafted him to be like, all right, he's going to give me 1 touchdown and 70 yards. Boom, we're going to be set 13 fantasy points minimum. He's not going to catch any balls, so we're going to get that at least. We can't even think on that. We can't bank on that. All right, number 27, Chris Ivory or LaShawn McCoy. LaShawn McCoy exited Sunday's game with a head injury. I'm not exactly sure to what extent. I'm sure it's concussion protocol of some sort. But as of right now, if Chris Ivory is the only running back in that backfield, I think, they're going to have to run the ball because Ryan Anderson can't move that ball with his arm. He can't. We talked about it yesterday. He can't. But Chris Ivory, he's been able to find himself some success this year. And if LaShawn plays, he's somewhere in this range because honestly, they split carries. And I'm not sure if he's going to be able to play. If you exited with a head injury, chances are you're going to go through concussion protocol. They're not going to clear you. But it is a Monday night game, so stay updated on that. We'll see how that goes. Number 28, Doug Martin. He's going to have value. He's going to touch the ball about 10 times. Maybe more, maybe 12, 13. Is he great for a standard play? Sure. But for PPR, he's a running back 3. He's a flex that you may be considering if you are dealing with bipocalypse or injuries. So that's where I see him. That's where I have him. A little bit above Payton Barber, who's at 29. Why? Because Payton Barber, goodness gracious, he came back down to earth. Payton Barber revealed his true self. He had himself a good week against the Falcons. Then turned it around against the Cleveland Browns and was embarrassingly bad. Ronald Jones, the guy that I thought a couple weeks ago was going to take over the backfield, somehow managed to score himself a touchdown. That's just a lot of Payton Barber owners are, I'm sure, upset this week, but we'll see. TJ Yeldon's my number 30. A guy that in the next couple weeks he's going to be used. They're going to split carries. There's going to be packages in which he's used for specifically and not, Carlos Hyde. So he's going to have some value. He's like Austin Eckler-esque value, but he's not obviously as explosive. So we'll just see how this goes. But he's going to have value. He's my number 30. 31, we have Frank Gore. I really don't think they're going to have an option to run the ball this week. Kenyan Drake will get some carries out of the backfield. So will Frank Gore. But I don't think he has really much of an option. That offense is going to be very, 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 very risky this week. So I wouldn't think about starting Frank Gore. So just be careful. But he's going to have his attempts. So we'll see. Maybe old man Gore can rip one off. 32, Duke Johnson. He's a PPR threat. That's literally to the extent of what he is. Against the Steelers, who don't give up many points to the running back position, he could find himself being a PPR nightmare for the Steelers defense, but we'll see. We'll have to wait and see. I'm not going to guarantee anything because honestly, he hasn't been great as of late, and he had his opportunity this past week. He was named the starter, but he wasn't able to produce, so we'll just have to wait and see. Number 33, Aaron Jones, is more of a Aaron Jones has the talent, okay? But does the Packers offensive coordinator, a.k.a. Mike McCarthy, want to give him the ball consistently? I don't know. Therefore, he's at 33. They play against the Rams defense, who looked really good. The Rams, I think they're a 9-point favorite going into this week. 9.5-point favorite going into the home game this week against the Packers. My goodness, that is a lot of points. And at least in the Rams' perspective, they play up and they play down the teams, right? When there's a team that they really want to beat, they'll go ahead and they'll give them the schmack. And therefore, just be careful of Aaron Jones this week. Number 34, Isaiah Crowell. I'm not a fan of Isaiah Crowell. You know that. It's a fact. But Bilal Powell did exit the game last week with an injury, so there's a potential chance that Isaiah Crowell this week finds himself some fantasy value to the extent to where you may consider him as a RB3 or flex position this coming week. Just keep that in mind. Honestly, if Powell is not available, then Isaiah Crowell has a lot more opportunity and he has a chance to at least be somewhat fantasy relevant. 35, Nyheim Hines. Now, what is my logic behind Nyheim Hines? I think because of the fact that they play against the Raiders, and I think this is going to be a blowout, Nyheim Hines is going to get some opportunity to run the ball. Just like how the New England Patriots, when they played the Buffalo Bills, they're going to blow out the Bills. And where is that going to leave them? They're going to leave them at being up 20-some-odd points going into the third quarter and then wanting to kill clock and just run the ball. So there's going to be some value in both these scenarios and instances. Last guy I want to mention, Javorius Allen this coming week. Here's the deal. I mean, I don't know if the Panthers are going to give up much points in the passing or in the running game. So Alex Collins is a little bit of a risk. Maybe Javorius Allen this week may be that guy. Catch a couple balls out of the backfield in a PPR scoring format, half-point PPR. Find himself some value. I don't know. Number 36 was much. I mean, it was a very much so of a toss-up. Chris Thompson should probably be on this list. Is probably more deserving than Javorius Allen as of right now, at least. But I just didn't even know if he was healthy. He hasn't played the last 2 weeks, and it doesn't look great as of this week. So he would probably be the supplement. But as of right now, not exactly sure how it's going to turn out. We will have an updated ranking on that Saturday episode, so stay tuned to that. But anyway, thank you everybody for watching. That pretty much finishes everything up when it comes to starts of the week, how I think about sitting or starting specific players in that little sit segment. And on top of it, these 1 through 36 rankings. Hopefully this helps. If you have any questions, go down in the comment section. Someone will be willing to help you. And anyway, I hope you guys have a pretty good week. It's Tuesday. Tomorrow's hump day. We'll get through that, and all will be well. So hopefully you got your waivers set. And put in multiple waivers, guys. Maybe some guy ahead of you on the waivers is going to take that guy. Put in multiple waivers. Be safe. And also, for streaming defenses, make sure that you don't put in a waiver on that streaming defense, because then you're going to lose waiver priority. I'd rather wait and see what happens to the landscape. Maybe someone drops the defense that I'd rather have. Then, you just got to wait. Just wait. No, just be patient, okay, people? Anyway, thank you, everybody, for watching. If you haven't already, go down, click that like button, and also click that subscribe button. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Wide receivers and quarterbacks tomorrow for sure. So we'll see you guys then. All right, bye.